Boom. We are recording. This is episode 25 of the Conscious Growth Podcast. And today we're talking about how brands fit into the CPG marketplace. We're going to talk a little bit about ecology. We're going to talk about an interesting topic that came out this week on the Joe Rogan Podcast that has to do with sourcing for your company, sourcing the raw materials. And then last, we're going to go over an example of a done-with-you consumer business, BelliWelli, that started their company based on consumer feedback in some customer groups they were a part of. So really interesting if you're starting a new company or trying to iterate on your product with customer feedback. Austin, what topic are we going to start with?
Start with what I'm going to call pro-human companies.
Okay.
I wrote a couple posts about it. I'm going to keep going on this thread, and it's just about the fact that, like, today's age, you can kind of arbitrage anything. So if there's like a little bit of inefficiency in a marketplace, you can capitalize on that, and tons of people do it. I mean, we know tons of people who are drop shippers or who sell knickknacks on Amazon or whatever it is. And it always leaves a sour taste in my mouth because it's like, one, you're not putting out something that like truly is beneficial to the world, and then two, where are all these source materials coming from? What is like the top to bottom supply chain to like deliver a product? Is it pro-human or is it not for humans or anti-human? I'll call it anti-human because it isolates more people, you know? Pro-human companies, it's like top to bottom, you know what's going on. Like, I'm wearing my clothing, I know where it's made, I know where we get the material, I know everything's in LA, materials made in LA. Zipper factory is a solar factory. It's like top to bottom. I try to understand everything about what we're doing with it, whose hands are actually making the product, because that is like one of the most important things. And the reason you brought up the Joe Rogan was I was talking about the episode yesterday, which was about cobalt and how the electric cars we use, the phones we use, the computers we use, they're all charged with cobalt. And the only way that cobalt right now is sourced is through slave labor in the Congo. I mean, not the only, it's like maybe 15% of cobalt is like in small mines in like Australia and like a few other places. Yeah. But 80% of it is literally men, women, and children digging with their hands cobalt out of the ground. And then you have a company like Apple, like Samsung, like Google going like, oh yeah, we do fair wages everywhere. We have no slave labor. We're super good and clean and everything's great. Straight up lying completely. Yeah. Tesla, Rivian, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Well, so they're not responsible for that directly within like the structures of their legal entity, their company, but you're saying because they know where their supply is coming from, the supply chain, that they're directly responsible for promoting and growing is doing this.
Yeah, I mean, they're the major users of cobalt. So like it is their supply chain, right? And they know what's going on, or at least someone in the company has to know what's going on. It's like that Confessions of an Economic Hitman stuff. Yeah. It's like at a certain point, like, you just turn a blind eye or like say, no, it's not. We're using sustainable cobalt. Yeah. You know, we're using sustainable gasoline over here to power this new whatever. Yeah. It's like, there's words that when you put together later in time, you're going to be on the wrong side of history.
Yeah. I know this is such a complicated topic for people though, because like with an integrated global economy, it's so hard to say like who's responsible for what. But I get what you're saying, because like in this case, some of these supply chains that we're seeing of these egregious human rights violations are grown or indirectly grown by, you know, one or two major clients who in a lot of cases are these major companies we're all familiar with. For sure.
I mean, yeah, it's on us though too. It's like if you upgrade every year to a new phone, like you're part of the problem. Yeah. It's just like the simple nature of consumerism. It's like every time you act to get something new and throw something that was new away, not because it doesn't work, but because you want something else, you are contributing to that problem. Which is like, you go around all the climate change stuff, it's just like, stop fucking overusing things. It's not that's not something you can argue. It's like, go to a trash mound and look at it. None of that shit's going to break down for like hundreds of years. Yeah. So
how do you think some of these companies where they're looking at their raw material sourcing, how do you think that helps the problem? Because a lot of people would say, especially people in the ecology community, would say like it's just consumerism and it's really just a matter of not consuming. There's not really a less wasteful version of consuming. But what would you say to that? Do you think there is an alternative, or maybe not? For sure.
I think we have to look at it like with multiple components. One is longevity, right? How long is a product going to last? I personally am fine buying a product that isn't made from sustainable materials if I'll have it for 15 years. If I'm going to use it for 15 years, doesn't matter that it's sustainable. Yes, it would be better if it is, of course, but if it's just built to last, great. That's beautiful. So I think that's like one of the fulcrums at the beginning. And then it becomes like a lot of companies could just do better out of the gate. It's like Amazon sends me tons of boxes, tons of bags, tons of whatever. Cool. Limit things, put things together, stop this one day nonsense of shipping, which I know increases conversion rate, but is like terrible for the world.
Yeah.
And then you look at like one of my favorite examples of a company that like does this so well is Alter Eco, the chocolate company. They're like replanting rainforest trees with every purchase and like making sure to like replant the chocolate that they're taking from the earth. Their wrappers for like their truffles are literally backyard compostable wrappers. So you could just put them in the ground in your backyard and they'll digest. Like it's stuff like that that, in my opinion, is what we need to do. It's super simple too. It's not like a hard thing. Like at the beginning it is, of course, like to figure out, cool, is this stable? Like, can I put my food product in it? Like, is it still USDA organic, whatever? I don't know, all the certifications that you'll have to go through. And then the product testing to make sure, like, if I send this, like we were talking to a prospect yesterday who's like, well, if we send our product right now, it is like 1 degree and it will probably all blow up. It's like, yeah, you got to still determine how that's going to work. But overall, like using sustainable materials is actually pretty easy to do. And then it's acting like companies like Vivo Barefoot, which in my opinion is like one of the best examples of a company that's not trying to increase excess consumerism. They're not like, buy all these shoes. Like the way that they operate is you buy shoes, you can send them back. They do little periods of time where if you send your old shoes back, they'll give you like 20% off a new pair, and then they'll sell them on Revivo because they'll completely remake the shoe. They'll like refurbish the bottom. They'll make sure the leather fits, everything looks good. And then if you live in Europe, they're not doing this in the US yet, but they're essentially like an old school shoe company where like I have some Vivos that I love, but they're getting worn down because I wear them everywhere. If you live in the UK, you could send them to their factory or wherever they make their shoes and they'll refurbish for $50. They'll replace anything that needs to be replaced. They'll clean the whole shoe and they'll send it back to you. So it's like basically a brand new shoe. That like gets me so pumped. I'm like, that's a company that I will pay $300 for a shoe. Why? Because I know everything they're doing is good. Like that's the direction to move forward with all these companies. It's like, stop this. You need more and more and more and more and more fast fashion. And it's like,
I feel like that's a good intermediary step too. Because like for all the people that are super new to ecology that are like, just don't buy anything. A, not everyone's going to do that right away, especially not like mass market consumers. But B, a lot of people already are like trying to move away from just crazy consumerism, and they're also like trying to find causes to invest in. And it's like, well, if you just invest in businesses that are open about their supply chain and how they're getting products to you, that is a way. Like a lot of premium CPG does have companies who are charging more for products because there are parts of the supply chain that are more expensive because they're using some of these more sustainable methods. So like I totally support this as an intermediary step for those people who aren't going to just not buy anything, but they do want to figure out a way to do stuff that's slightly better for the environment. Like it is a movement in the right direction. And I know people in ecology anyone in that space is just like, no, it's not enough. And I get that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a both and thing. Right now, which is like changing consumer habits. So you don't need, but what if? Like, I'll just buy this thing because like, what if? Or like, I mean, just go into any like Target or Walmart and you'll be like, oh my God, I don't know, bash my head out. What is all this stuff? It's just random things that like shouldn't exist probably. Or at least not in the form that they're built, which is like for 60 cents in China and sold as like something that lasts for a week.
I mean, if you're somebody spending money and you're not even thinking about what you're spending money on, just getting people in the direction of more conscious consumption in terms of what they spend money on is already a big improvement. Like just not practicing retail therapy, if you're one of those people that's real big into that, is already a massive change in the right direction.
Buy me shit. Like gift cards instead of whatever you're going to go do retail therapy with. Like it's even better. Like giving
the
to
Attention
people
Labs
is
GoFundMe.
Even better. Giving to people promotes much more healthy happiness than like buying things. So you just give me things. and I'll make sure they go to a good place.
To the right places. Yeah. No, that's it is an interesting topic though. It's so complex. You mentioned this too. Originally, this came up because of this cobalt topic. You said that you saw this on the Joe Rogan podcast, but basically you're saying that they were sourcing these materials and it was essentially, this is like the worst case. That's why we brought it up. It's like the worst case of this, but it was essentially like slave labor, right?
Yeah, I mean, almost all cobalt is slave labor. It's like $1 a day max that these people. I mean, he said like $1 to $2, but like all we have to do is ramp that up to $10, and they have livable wages. $10 a day. Like
what did they say it was at? $2?
$1 to $2. That's why their whole family works. That's why the kids work too. Like breathing in toxic cobalt, like with their hand and like shitty tools digging it out of the ground.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, it sounds good, but asking someone to 5x their costs, man.
No, that's the thing. It wouldn't 5x the cost. Like, it's a marginal balance sheet rounding error, essentially, to like $10 million from all these companies. That's it. Like, it's not the cost of the material goes up as much as the cost of labor to get it.
Oh, so you're saying the total cost of labor you think is probably like a fraction of what they're paying for the materials themselves?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But for whoever's like running these mining operations,
horrible humans.
That's all their costs, you know. So you're asking those people to 5x their costs.
Just need to get some more managers out there.
Yeah, I'm excited about the book though. What was the book again?
Cobalt Red. I think it'll be really illuminating.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that one.
It's so great. A lot of shit. It really does. I really hope it does.
That's so wild, man. Yeah. Just another reason that we're trying to work with as many companies we can as possible who are thinking about these types of issues. At least where they're getting their product materials.
The whole line. Can't just be one thing. With some, like, dude, this is why I hate athletic greens. Because they're so vague about everything they do.
Yeah,
it's all proprietary blends. It's not organic. So all these people who I normally would know who'd be pushing like you should really like try to just focus on organic. They're like athletic greens, and I'm like, it says some organic ingredients, meaning like maybe one thing in there or 3 things is organic. Plus, it's proprietary. How do you not know this thing is just mostly apple powder? Which like forever ago when I read an analysis of it, it like was mostly like apple powder. It's like I hate vague companies who like get the VC money, redo the branding, look super cool, and like don't have the data to back it.
Yeah, aren't really specific about what is in the product.
Yeah, very specific. And show your ingredient list. Like if it's actually that good, you should show not with a proprietary blend, but exactly what you're doing, because why would you not want to? It's like Elon doing the open source for Tesla, which made Tesla blow up even more. It's like then you get copycats that contribute to it and like raise the issue of like, hey, we should probably be having all these things. And if your supply chain's that good and you're making that much money and yada yada, you probably own your production, so you should be able to get the cheapest cost on it anyways. And then you should be able to always be competitive in the marketplace.
Yeah, you said he open sourced. What did he open source? I didn't see this.
Everything, all of his designs. Like you could build a Tesla from the ground up. All that's been open source since the beginning. Battery design.
Oh yeah. I think that's because he's saying that now their factories are really like their most important proprietary
for sure
sort of technology.
You're not going to compete with Elon and by building a Tesla, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm saying too, though. Is like things like athletic greens should be able to stand behind their product like that too and show you what's in it. Yeah, certainly in consumer packaged goods. Yeah, there's the proprietary blend thing. I mean, that really came out of the supplement space where it's like not FDA approved as like a whatever, it's a drug. It's like they can have proprietary blends. Yeah, it's just because the ingredient quality too is so suspect if people don't know where it's coming from or what the concentration is of different ingredients, especially when you're talking about ingredients that the like relative price is so much different. Like the one that really always gets me is like, because I purchase this one a lot, is in the supplement space, supplements that include phosphatidylserine, and then they have a proprietary blend, and it's like such an expensive product, and people like will way underdose it and then charge like
prices that are comparable to like higher concentration products. And it's just, they do this with so many supplements, and it's the worst because it's just such a ripoff.
Yeah. Yeah, like Athletic Greens. How do you literally not know that 85% of it is not apple powder? And then 15% is those other 74 ingredients that they talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Like 1% of each thing. Or no, that'd be like 0.3% of each thing. That's probably what it is. Like, let's be honest. Like, they're blowing up everywhere. Their marketing's everywhere. They bought every single podcast. Like, they're making a killing on you buying an overpriced apple powder. Mm-hmm. Sorry, that's my soapbox for Athletic Greens. It just really...
No, we've seen this. We've recently started to see this a lot in the space where these clinics are selling supplements that are like clinical grade, but they're supplements. And it's the same thing, proprietary blends of like these products that cost like fractions of a penny, and they're charging just egregious prices for them. So what was the one we saw? Like the one I think the one I'm thinking of that I saw was like, there's peptides for sure, which is a whole other thing. That's not even like, that's total gray area. But there was like a high dose melatonin supplement. And I think it was like 200 grams of melatonin. And I believe it was $130 for a 12-day supply. So just over $10 per day. For like a month supply, it was literally like $500. And basically what it was, Austin, was like, it was like high dose melatonin. And then it was just a host of other just minerals and vitamins that were supposed to increase absorption, and some sort of lipid-based solvent it was in that was like, again, supposed to increase absorption. It wasn't a suppository. I think this was one that you taken orally, but it was just these proprietary blend that was supposed to increase the bioavailability of what was in it. And it was these every component of it was like a super low cost powder that you can purchase from like God knows where, and then just mix up and have a proprietary blend that you're selling for just like hundreds of dollars. It was unbelievable because the margins in a product like that, like for the product costs, are just ridiculous.
I mean, they also have, I know the site we're talking about. They also have a methylene blue product, which is literally blue dye. Like, it's raw blue from jeans. Has a ton of health benefits. I mean, I get one. I got one right here.
But it's the stuff they mix in like fish tanks.
$300.
Yeah.
Like, what's the difference? If it's the exact same molecule, and now you're paying for like, it's super high dose. I will say that, but $300 worth of methylene blue, I could literally like turn pools blue for that much amount.
Yeah. So, not to say that all these people are using slave labor to get these low cost supplements, but there are a lot of opportunities to get either lower costs to consumers or higher quality products that are made in a better way. There's a lot of people that are charging a lot more than they need to.
Be transparent. Like one of our previous clients, Natural Stacks, was really good with this. And like, they're open source everything. They have third party testing for every one of their supplements. They show you which factories and production facilities they're getting it from. They show you, and it's all on the blockchain, like literally cemented in time. Like, they wanted to make sure that this is not going to go away. They can't obfuscate data later in time.
Oh, wow.
That's how it should be. Be transparent. You're not making anything magical. Sorry.
I didn't know they did that. That's cool. Okay, the other topic we had was this post on Done With You consumer brands. And this is just a follow-up to a post I had done on this idea that some of the founders of Pattern Brands had come up with this phrase. They termed it Done With You, DWC instead of DTC. Instead of direct to consumer, done with consumer. And the idea is that you build a brand based on feedback from your customers, like all the way through like figuring out the brand, figuring out your product roadmap, iterating on your product roadmap. And so the founders of BelliWelli, which is basically an intestine-friendly snack food, like a digestion-friendly snack food. It's aimed at people who have irritable bowel syndrome or other similar types of issues with their gut and digestion. And it's like an easy-to-digest snack. And the founders, Katie and her husband, Nicholas Wilson, basically came up with this by being in a Facebook group that was for people who had irritable bowel syndrome, hearing all their problems and trying to figure out what they could do to help the group. And then they came to the conclusion that there wasn't really a snack that was easy for these people to eat that they were sure wasn't going to cause further problems. So they came up with it. And we have a list of things they did here that anyone trying to build a company like this should do. And they all focus around being able to rapidly iterate on your product based on customer feedback. So one thing they did is they stayed in that group and they were interacting with people all through the product development. Like, they even talk about about how they sourced the packaging, like the flavors they were going to start with, all their follow-on flavors from their group. They even sourced some of their messaging and I believe their title. The name for the company. They gave them some options and got that as feedback as well. But some of the big things they did were they had a network of investors that understood their problem. They also had, they partnered with people that were experts in food science and creating these different flavors. They didn't try to learn that on the fly. They wanted to be able to iterate with this feedback. And part of that is partnering with experts so you can do that quickly. And then one of the other things was just that they, when they took this to investors, they had a lot of data about the fact that this was a cultural trend that they were just taking advantage of. So they had some interesting data around the amount of people that experienced irritable bowel syndrome or talked about it day to day. And it was some crazy statistic. It was like 2 or 3 in 5 Americans have experienced like on a daily basis recurring digestion related issues. So they were riding this sort of cultural zeitgeist of problems that people knew. And then the last thing was like they also knew how to talk about it. There's kind of a trend in a lot of consumer packaged goods not to talk about this type of problem explicitly, and they knew that that was wrong and that talking about it explicitly would work nowadays. People are much more open to talking about these types of issues. So all those things really helped them to grow this, and it was all based on being in touch with their consumer all the way through the product and company development process. I don't know where we've seen this with clients, but I know we have some examples.
Yeah. I got wrapped into the 2 out of 5 Americans experience whatever and stomach troubles.
Do you believe that though?
Yeah, I do. I think it's just all due to endotoxin. It's like pretty obvious. It's like, can you clear the gut of endotoxin instead of like making things that aren't that don't affect your gut? You know what I mean? It's it's like the Band-Aid approach. Put a Band-Aid on it. We'll see what happens. Granted, Band-Aids work because it increases intracellular carbon dioxide, which helps the wound heal quicker. But just that idea of it, I think it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that they did it with the community. Like, we're definitely, trying to push companies in this direction. But the gut issue itself is interesting as well because being in the alternative health and wellness space, we know that like, even though it's not talked about as much, a lot of what health food products do are doing things that are gut friendly, like increasing digestion. Even if it's like, as weird as it sounds, like throughput through the gut, like making it easier, like whatever it does, increasing gut motility, like reducing like buildup of the negative toxins in the gut. Like these things all help with your overall like hormonal environment in your body, even though that's not something you're going to see on a package for something that's made like CIT chips that's made without a lot of the toxic food ingredients that are in a lot of like normal chips. You're not going to see that, but that's like a big part of what all of them do systematically for the body.
For sure. Yeah, it's super interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great approach. It's like work with your customers. Again, it's this whole thing. Survey your customers. Start a group.
I know.
I'm looking at school.com, which is Sam Oven's new thing, post consulting.com, which is like a course platform mixed with a Facebook group mixed with a calendar.
It's like perfect for this, for setting up a company base. How could, because we actually haven't even talked about this yet, how could a CPG company use like his new platform? Like, how are you seeing it?
Very simple, simple one that I'll just use like one of the companies we work with as an example because I'm going to be talking to them about this soon. Opus. I know we both have that on our LinkedIn too, so it's public. But we invested and we love the company. But essentially, they're going to have these sound medicine beds that vibrate, do basically like put you into meditation in 7 minutes or less. Here's the easiest thing they could do. Set up the course. Cool. Right now, because there's been so many things with product development that have taken extra time, you literally have it like update from this day, update from this day, update from this day. It's literally like a course for all the customers out of the gate. Cool. Yep. Then you have your whole Facebook community section, which is like, oh, everybody's conversing and like, hey, we got comments or feedback from that video. Like people want to know actually how this is going. Cool. We'll record another one and put it down there. And then the calendar is literally like, cool, we'll set dates for like an Ask Me Anything, or like, cool, this designer or this music artist is creating a new new song for the platform. They're going to drop some information about what that looks like. Cool, the app's finally developed. Like you can go test and beta test here. We're going to do a calendar launch where everybody gets on at the same time. It's like a Zoom thing. I think it's perfect. Like to me, it sounds like the best thing ever. And you could do it with any type of brand. You have a CPG food products company. It's like, hey, founders here, we want to tell you about like what our ideas were going into this, why we created this product. And then the next one's like a little bit about how to use this platform and like kind of get to know your fellow protein eaters, whatever. I'm just using some random words.
Totally.
And then the next one is like, hey, I want to give you like a day in the life from one of our influencers and kind of how they use this product in their day-to-day life. And then below it, like, is a podcast that the founder just did with whatever. And like, you literally just create it. So it's like, this is the resources behind this mega Goliath food product company that like on the outset doesn't look like it's a human, but like we need to make sure that like the community understands that like people are designing a product. Yeah. And here's what's going into it. And here's the journey that the product's going through. And here's how you can have input into what's happening with this product company. So that's how I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I think for especially the product roadmaps, having threads on those and having people be able to at least see the history of how it was developed or participate is going to be huge, because most companies should be doing something similar to this. I think it'll make it way faster. They're like, testing cycle, the same way that people test in SaaS and they get much more feedback at different stages of product development. I think that a lot of CPG founders are realizing they can do that as well. There's no reason they can't. Exactly. What was the name of the platform? Is it School or is it? He started a different
SKOOL.com.
Interesting. Yeah, I've
it's
seen
only
it,
like
but
$100 a month.
Yeah.
For a company. So
yeah, I've seen it, but I hadn't thought of it for this use. I know he did make it though to be like a better version of what people are doing on Facebook groups for private companies. Yeah,
I have this. Use it for e-com. It's perfect.
Yeah. We're gonna have to run that as a test. Cool. Okay, that was the topics. Do you have anything else you want to go over today? Anything new stuff?
I feel like that's it. It's my ramblings.
Nice. I love it. Boom.